Like, if we're going to bitch and moan about them asking to get paid, then you know what? Then no baseball season. Like, we can't bitch and moan about there not being a baseball season, begging for sports to come back. Same argument with the reopening country. If we're going to beg for all this to happen, then we're going to have to take the risk, or we're going to have to at least compensate them properly. Same as every employer, every essential worker right now deserves to get paid. Anyone that is putting their risk in themselves to continue to keep this economy going, to continue to give other people like me the satisfaction and the benefits of a, easy living with having all my stuff being delivered all the time, by having the faith that there's a doctor that can take care of me, that there's a nurse that will greet me at the door of the hospital if I'm sick, that there's food I can order if I need to, that there are people working in the supermarkets, that the mail continues to run smoothly. Like, all these incredible essential workers that I'm asking to be out there because I want my way of life to continue going forward deserves everything coming their way. Welcome to the ChadBurn Show, brought to you by M. Chad Baldwin. Welcome to the ChadBurn Show. I am your host, M. ChadBurn, and for another week, we are coming at you with a new episode of the ChadBurn Show. We are still in the quarantine settings. We are at the home office. We are doing what we do with the new home studio and what we can with what we've got. So this is where we're at. As always, we do not have Julian Ronvazé with us, unfortunately, for this show, as we are not in his studio but at home. Soon, I hope, with everything kind of dialing back and the COVID-19 restrictions maybe starting to come apart, we're going to have a little less, we're going to be able to get there and have a little less uncertainty and maybe get to record with him again. Because we do miss having, obviously, Julian in the background and helping us out with the show. But we're going to forge forward. We're going to continue to get you good content and continue to make episodes for the ChadBurn Show. Now, this week is an interesting one. We're going to tackle a couple of interesting topics of the day. One is going to be the discussion from Blake Snell on MLB players taking pay cuts during this irregular season if they were to come back, or how the setup is going, the rumored discussions from MLB and the owners of how they'd like to share the revenue versus the original goal, and kind of discussing, do they have a case, do they have a leg to stand on when players such as Blake Snell say they will not take a pay cut. And two, we are going to go through Dan Orlovsky's quarterback list, which has created a lot of controversy last week since Dan Orlovsky places his fifth best quarterback in the NFL as Carson Wentz. And then we're going to actually more focus on his NFC list, which had Carson Wentz at number 4 in the NFC for quarterbacks. Defend what I think about that. Do I think that's outrageous? Should he be lower? Is there other quarterbacks that could jump over him? And as well as kind of my own top 5 quarterback list in the NFC. But to start off with, as we talked about, player cuts in the MLB, the controversy created right now by Blake Snell, the pitcher for the Tampa Bay Rays. Blake Snell came out on his Twitch account discussing with taking players' questions while playing. Twitch, obviously the major streaming platform for video games, and he was adamant in saying that he would not take a pay cut for this season. Now, a little background. For the MLB, after they canceled their season, there's discussions trying to bring it back. Would they go into have a shorter season, maybe just 80 games for the rest of the year with a 14-team postseason? The original idea was, when it came to player salaries, that what they would do is a prorated salary. So all the games that they were to play, that percentage of games played would be percent of the contract that they would get paid. Their normal game salary, they would get all that normal pay as always, with an added 4% of their 2020 salary added on top of those game salaries. So obviously not the full year salary, but enough to justify that what they played is what they earned and what they get. Recently, the owners, because of their fears of playing with empty stadiums and the idea that they would not make money off of this, they have come with a new resolution that they back, which is having a 50-50 revenue split between the owners and the players. This has taken an interesting angle in that the players are completely against this. And I think you'll be surprised to hear that I am in support with the players. I actually agree with Blake Snell not wanting to take a pay cut. Now you're saying, Chad, how can you even justify this when he's making $7 million a year and players that back him up like Bryce Harper making $25 million a year? And my argument is I don't look at that number. I don't see the million number and say that that's what is attributed to them and that's how we should make our argument, because it's our fault for them even getting this much money a year. We have put value on it by creating a baseball league that we supported and growing and giving players before in seasons these ridiculous contracts. So we can't just look at like they're millionaires making $1 million a year, and because of that, they should be willing to take a pay cut. For the average Joe, for someone like me, of course, I see $7 million and I'm saying, I'm set. I don't need to worry about anything. I take a pay cut to go several $100,000. That's fine with me. But these players are set at a standard and have earned it and have worked their way to make that amount of money. So I'm saying you shouldn't take it away from them because of this, because the owners are the ones that are worried, okay? If you want to punish anyone or take away money in any sense of in order to kind of justify the shortened season, then I think you need to go after the owners. Because I think Blake Snell makes a very good argument, okay? His concern is that he's going to go out and play in these stadiums with the possibility, the risk of catching COVID-19 and putting his health at risk and even his life at risk by contracting the disease. Number two, he is going to have to isolate himself away from his family, away from his loved ones. He's going to have to stay through the rest of the games in total isolation away from them. And if he were even to get in contact with them, he'd be putting them at risk and their life at risk. And then the third and tried and true and always testament of the players and why they argue to get paid this amount is really the injury risk they take by going onto the field. So if you're going to ask the players to go above and beyond to play this season, to play in a special location that allows them to play, which means away from their family, and continue to give them that general risk of getting injured and derailing their careers and derailing the chance for them to make any money, then I think we have to stick to an agreement that gets these players paid. Now, I know the numbers are crazy. Bryce Harper was the most recent player to weigh in on this, saying that he agrees with Blake Snell and agrees with them. And there's the backlash has been because players like Bryce Harper make $25 million a year. I think last year he made 10, but he's going to, with all the other added on, it's going to be over 25. He has a $330 million contract over 13 years. Blake Snell is eventually going to make $16 million in 2022. So, again, these are huge numbers and salaries that these players can easily live without right now because of all the other money they make. But again, they didn't determine the market. They didn't go out there and beg for this money. Teams gave them this money because of the talent and because of where we set the price and the bar for these players. So we can't just go out of the way and say, yes, just because you make $25 million, you need to make more. You need more sacrifices than normal, other human beings, other workers, other employees who have to take cuts or lose their job. But I understand what Blake Snell's saying. With the same risks that are always added on, and in the increased risk of COVID-19, he deserves to get what he's got coming to him, which is this salary. Now, I think there is obviously, you could put a cap saying that if a player makes over 15, 20 mil, that, there's up to that point is what they'll lose. And I think the original baseball contract idea, which was pay them for the games they play and add a 4% bonus on top of that, is really fair. And I think the players were on board with that because they're getting their game check. What they don't want is what they're calling now a salary cap, by having this 50-50 revenue split with the owner. Because what it's saying is, in essence, by making a 50-50 split, you're saying the owners are taking on the same amount of risk as these players. And that's just not true. These owners are self-made billionaires, billionaires really, or high millionaires that have bought this team because they love the sport and they want to make more money, okay? And they've decided to pay these players because they want these sports franchise to be successful. But they're not the ones going on the field. They're not the ones that are going to have to self-isolate away with their families. They're not the ones putting themselves at risk of injury or contracting COVID-19. So why on earth should we be concerned about the salaries of the owners or how much money the owners are going to make? The real discussion should be about, do the players get their money because of the games they played? And then based on that. And then the owners will just have to go with what they get. The owners can't be looking to make more money in this situation because, yes, their revenue was driven by ticket sales. Their revenue is driven by having butts in the seats of their stadium. But you can't have that anymore. But if you want to have players play, if you want to continue to go on, if you want to have an MLB season, then you need to play the players what they deserve for those games that they play. The players are not subject to the amount of fans that are in the stands. Their contracts aren't dictated by that. The owner's salary is. And the owners are now trying to get more money away from the players to somehow cover their losses. And I think that's ridiculous. And what Blake Snell is really getting at is that with this new plan, you can't be thinking about the owners, okay? The owners aren't at risk of anything. If we're going to be an uproar over players wanting to get paid, then there needs to be some kind of uproar around the owners wanting to get paid. Because it's the same idea. These owners are making tens of millions of dollars a year off these players, off the back of these players, off the back of these franchises. And while, yes, they're connected to it, and yes, they're paying those salaries, there's still a lot of money they're making. So why are we in such an uproar over players asking to get paid when owners are doing the same right now? So I'm going to be on the back of the players. I think the players have the strongest argument to get paid because they're the ones actually putting the product on the field. They're the ones that believe in it right now. And with that in mind, I think I'm always just going to side with the players for that. I just have a player bias. I believe that, when they're the ones creating the product, that they're the ones that deserve to get their just desserts. They're the ones that deserve to get paid. And so I find the fat cat kind of owner mentality just really in this situation just kind of sad because, again, they're not suffering. Yes, they're not going to make revenue off this teams, but if you're going to agree with the MLB to have a rest of the season, then stop trying to scratch every penny away you can from the players to put in your own pockets, to line your own coffers. It's just, it doesn't fit well with the kind of idea of what we're doing right now, this, solidarity with what we're going through. And the players too, right? I would understand the players if they're getting paid for not playing games, and that's a little ridiculous, right? They shouldn't get necessarily paid for no product. But if they're going to go out there, they're going to play the games, pay them their game contracts, all right? It's same as employees right now going to, essential employees going to work. They're getting paid for what they're doing. And for many of them, and this also opens up a whole other question because, again, if we're going to publicize the talk about players getting paid and, the right for them to get paid for the work they're doing, hopefully this opens up a larger cultural question about the essential workers right now and making sure they're getting paid. Because I know right now there are many nurses out there who are not making as much as they should for the entire work they're doing in these hospitals to help out with this care. There are delivery workers, there are postal workers, there are essential workers every day in whether it be the food industry to help keep people getting fed and all this chaos who are not getting paid what they should get paid. And there are companies trying to take away salaries from those workers in order to keep the companies afloat. And this is my overall philosophy in everything is that the owners and the upper people in these companies better not be taking away money from the people doing the work during this trying time. During COVID-19 and during a pandemic, there better be no monies taken away from the actual people out there on the front line doing their work. So I put the players on the same line as I do any of the other people that have to work right now, that have to risk their health in order to deliver something for society. And yes, it's considered a stupid game, and people, as Snell pointed out, people may go to him and say, do it for the love of the game. But no, it's a job to him. It's a job. It's what puts the food on the plate for his kids, for his family. It keeps him secure. It keeps his future secure. And it's just, if we're going to have the same philosophy for all workers and whatnot, that's how it should be. We shouldn't have to worry about the owners and the upper echelon people who have money, who have backup money, who can survive right now without needing that, say, salary. Okay, let's think about the players. Let's think about the workers. Let's think of people on the front line doing their job to keep this going. So that will always be my stance. I back them. I support them. And that's why I'm not outraged by Snell's comments. I'm not outraged by the players looking to support themselves and to back up their lifestyle and their well-being. I just think owners are ridiculous. But let's even see if a baseball season starts. All this talk around it may be worthless. There may be no baseball season. The fact that do a 14 team postseason would be incredible. I'd love to see that because that'd be like an awesome kind of postseason setup for the MLB. They deserve to have a big one like that. But we have a long time to go before we actually see any results of these seasons or if it's going to happen. They have to have a location. They have to be able to isolate everyone. They have to be able to get the tests. There's a lot of unknowns of whether this will happen, and they may just cancel the season outright. And then the players have nothing to talk about because they're just going to get paid for what their salary did. But that's why I backed the prorate idea before. I think the prorated for the games played plus a 4% bonus of their 2020 salary on top of that seems fair. That seems reasonable. But to say that they're not putting themselves at risk is insane, because they are. They're doing this to anyone else putting a job, and they're doing it for us because we're the ones that want to see baseball play. Like, if we're going to bitch and moan about them asking to get paid, then you know what? Then no baseball season. Like, we can't bitch and moan about there not being a baseball season, begging for sports to come back. Same argument with the reopening country. If we're going to beg for all this to happen, then we're going to have to take the risk, or we're going to have to at least compensate them properly. Same as every employer, every essential worker right now deserves to get paid. Anyone that is putting their risk in themselves to continue to keep this economy going, to continue to give other people like me the satisfaction and the benefits of a, easy living, with having all my stuff being delivered all the time, by having the faith that there's a doctor that can take care of me, that there's a nurse that will greet me at the door of the hospital if I'm sick, that there's food I can order if I need to, that there are people working in the supermarkets, that the mail continues to run smoothly. Like, all these incredible essential workers that I'm asking to be out there because I want my way of life to continue going forward deserves everything coming their way. They deserve all pay. They deserve everything. And that same goes to athletes, because that's for my enjoyment. I want them to start so I have something to see and I have something to root for. So the players deserve the support in that sense. Maybe not Harper, because he doesn't need $25 million. Maybe we give him 20, and I think he'll be fine with that. There's no need to be going crazy over $25 to $30 million. I mean, come on. But that being said, we move to our next topic of the show, which was a controversial segment on ESPN, and interesting to hear his arguments and defend it. And as an Eagles supporter, I may have a different opinion than most other Eagles fans. But Dan Orlovsky came out with his top 5 NFL quarterback list, with Carson Wentz at number 5, beating out the likes of Drew Brees and Deshaun Watson. He also then had his NFC list, which was running from 1st to 5. Number 1, Russell Wilson. Number 2, Tom Brady, who's now in the NFC. I know, crazy stuff. Number 3, Drew Brees. Number 4, Carson Wentz. And number 5, Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'm going to go out and just say, obviously, putting Wentz above Rodgers, I think, is a bit crazy. I love Wentz. I support Wentz. I think Wentz can be a top-tier quarterback, and I don't think even the Cowboys analysts on ESPN who are against, who aren't Wentz fans, they don't argue that Wentz is a top 10 quarterback. They think absolutely Wentz can be a top 10. I mean, he's got the talent. He's shown he can do it with regards to pulling that team along that had no 1,000-yard receiver, no 1,000-yard rusher. I mean, they were just able to excel with a ragtag team of players that were just taken off the streets, and he brought them to the playoffs. But there are, of course, questions of health with Carson Wentz. There's questions of, can he beat, the top 5 teams? Can he, perform under pressure? The main things that we were concerned about, can he be clutch in the fourth quarter? Well, we know that's possible now. So now it's, can he come big when it's a big stage against big name teams? And that's something we have yet to see. We know in his 2017 campaign, he did great against LA. He beat top talent with the Cowboys, in the NFC East. He came short against the Seahawks, which is the only team he really couldn't get. The Seahawks and the Chiefs were the 2 teams he couldn't beat that year, which are the top ones. And he's continued to struggle against those upper teams, in the seasons that come, later. He obviously performs, but he hasn't gotten those W's consistently. But when I think about it and how Orlovsky ranked the top 5, I mean, I'm pretty close to him. If I were to think about my top 5 quarterbacks in the NFC, not NFL, remember, we're excluding Patrick Mahomes. We're excluding, because he's obviously the number 1 quarterback in the league right now. We're excluding Lamar Jackson. We're looking at just NFC. If I were to rank my NFC quarterbacks right now, I would have Russell Wilson as number 1. I think he's a clear-cut number 1. He's the winner in this conference. He is the epitome of quarterback for this conference. Number 2, Aaron Rodgers. On talent alone, I know Rodgers has not won big games recently in the last few years. He's had some injuries, but Aaron Rodgers clearly, to me, is the most talented quarterback out there when it comes to arm strength. When it's on the line and you just have to have a passing attack from behind, I want Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball. Number 3, Drew Brees. I mean, it's insane not to have him in the top 3 right now in the NFC, because even at his age, he's still performing. He's still taking the Saints far, and it's impressive every year that the Saints are a powerful team in the NFC with a quarterback that is approaching 40 or 41. I'll confirm that. But he's one of the oldest quarterbacks in the league, and he hasn't really had any drop-off. And don't forget, the other parts about him that's always insane is that he's still one of the smallest quarterbacks in the league, and he still is able to perform over those big linebackers. He's able to make the pass he needs to make year after year after year with no real slowdown. So he has to be in the top 3. Number 4, I put Tom Brady on just reputation alone because Tom Brady has showed a little drop off last year, but it's still Tom Brady. When the game is on the line, you trust Tom Brady. And then what I have here now is with 5, 6, and 7, I see ties in all those spots. I have a tough time differentiating where I'd put them. At 5, I would put Deshaun Watson tied there with Carson Wentz. I think Deshaun Watson has, after one bad injury his first year, has shown that he can be healthy, that he can rack up insane yardage and come from behind in big wins. His postseason was impressive. Obviously they couldn't pull it off big and to advance further into the conference championship, but Watson, the Texans showed that they're only a few pieces away from being a dominant team. And Watson is creative. He's athletic. He's able to make all the throws he wants to make. Everything they question about if he had the mechanics to be a great quarterback were silenced in his first year. And I think he's continued to grow on that. There are moments, obviously, where there's some maturity that still needs to be there, making sure you're not putting the ball in a dangerous position, for interceptions, turnovers, and, consistently moving the ball down the field. But he has shown to be an elite quarterback. And I put Wentz on the same level because I see the same things. Wentz has all the talent, has all the athleticism, has the accuracy, can throw every route out there. And he's shown that he now can win in clutch. But there are still questions with Wentz, and we'll get to that. The next one is I put 6, tied Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott. I put them on the same level because we have seen that Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins, if they do not have the right weapons around them, they do not win games. They are incredible in systems, and when they have talent, they explode that talent. They are so great at, amplifying the talent around them, of making the star players great and getting them the ball. And, and they make great plays during that. They show that they have the arm strength. They show that they can win. And I will not doubt that at all. But I think that what we haven't seen is them being able to do it without talent around them. And that's big. And then at 7, I would have tied Jared Goff and Matt Stafford, just because Stafford has shown inconsistent throughout his years, and Jared Goff is the same way. Early in his career, he excelled by having a great offensive-minded coach with Sean McVay come on board and show him how to get it done. But there's still questions there. Same with Matt Stafford. Can they consistently play at a high level without any ups and downs? Can there be consistency there? And when I look at this list, and I think people will question, obviously I would, if I had, 5A and then 5B, I'd put Watson above Wentz just because I think Watson's shown some raw talent and ability to really be more creative, and Wentz has shown a little inconsistency here and there. But I think the big argument here, and this is why I'll bring it up, because it's an NFC East question every year, and it's Wentz versus Dak. Okay? Now, unlike a lot of Eagles fans out there, I'm not a Dak hater. I think that it's been unfair to compare the two constantly because they came out of the same draft class, they're in the same division, and they're between the two hated rivals between the Eagles and the Cowboys. Now, I think Dak is a really good player, but let's look at the numbers of reality, okay? Wentz and Dak are almost identical statistically over their first 4 seasons. The only edge really is Dak has an edge over yards total, but with completion rating, they're within each other by a percentage point. Touchdowns, Wentz has the edge there. You have, the amount of attempts and completion, Wentz is only off. And where I'll give Wentz the edge is because Wentz is able to keep a lockstep with Dak's statistical performance with less games because of his injury history. Wentz hasn't played as many games as Dak, yet he is almost there in almost every significant category that matters. The one category he doesn't get, where Dak has obviously excelled, is beating those really good teams. Dak has really shown up when the lights come on. Dak performs against big teams. But, and this will be the asterisk on where I think they improve. So I will say this. The questions for both quarterbacks, Dak and Wentz, have big question marks on making it to the next step. Wentz has to perform against the big, powerful teams. Wentz needs to be able to be in the spotlight and perform. We've seen him beat Green Bay. We saw him do it last year. We've seen him get close against Seattle. We've seen him get close against Chiefs and the big teams. And against New England as well. And that was a bad game offensively, but we've seen, that there could be sparks there. He needs to get over the hump and be able to show that he's a top team in the NFL and he can beat the top teams in the NFL. The thing that he silenced was the clutch. We know he can perform. And what's more impressive there, and in the next question of Dak and how Wentz excels, is that Wentz is able to usually win and get further and make the playoffs with really anyone on his team. he can make bad receivers look good, which is really hard to do if they're not getting separation, if they're not really got the talent to win those 50-50 balls. It's tough to make them look good. You have to be extremely accurate, and you have to be almost surgical in your precision. But, Wentz also has a fumble issue. So then we move to Dak. The big question I have on Dak, where Wentz is, can he beat the top teams? Dak's proven that. My question is, can Dak win with anyone? I don't think that's true. We've seen if Dak doesn't have a 1,000-yard receiver or a 1,000-yard rusher, he doesn't win. Okay, Carson Wentz is an 8-7 record with that because he has so many has so much less talent around him. Whereas Dak, has lost games without those, has his own one without a 1,000-yard receiver and a 1,000-yard rusher, which is also sad to say. There's only one game that Dak Prescott has ever played in the NFL without either a 1,000-yard rusher or a 1,000-yard receiver on the field. Okay, this is a fact. The Cowboys do a great job of surrounding Dak with talent. And that's something the Eagles need to do. They need to put talent around Wentz, and can we see him grow with that talent? But Dak has yet to show that he is a quarterback that can win on his own without incredible talent around him. Where Dak then excels over Wentz, I say, is Dak does show up in the big spotlight. He is able to play those big teams. He's able to perform against those big teams. But Dak also needs to show that he can do it on his own. And again, statistically, they're in lockstep. And Dak needs to show that he can get the team over the hump and get them into the playoffs and go on sustained runs and have success clutch, okay? So those are where we're seeing the real differentiations between those two quarterbacks. And why I give Wentz the upper is that he's shown that he can win and get further in these seasons. And I know Dak obviously has one playoff win versus Wentz has none, but again, statistically, these guys are on par. So, I still believe both of them can get better. I believe that both of them need to jump to the next level. But that's why right now, and obviously you can say Eagles bias, but I believe Wentz has the edge over Dak right now. I think Dak still needs to show he is a quarterback on his own, and he's not just being supported by incredible talent around him. And that's just it. But, and the other one too is, Dak is really, Dak's very secure. He doesn't have a lot of turnovers. Wentz fumbles the ball because Wentz holds on too long. So, if you have Watson and Wentz tied at 5, or if you have Watson at 5 and then Wentz and Dak tied at 6, I think that's fair. I'm not going to say Dak is trash. I think Dak has shown to be a strong quarterback in this league and shown to have a chip on his shoulder and play well. But both quarterbacks have areas of their games that they need to address in order to take that next step to be an elite quarterback. But yeah, I think they're both very good. And then, below them are Cousins, Goff, and Stafford. And Cousins got a huge contract. So that's why Dak's looking at it, because Dak's looking at Cousins' contract being like, are you fucking kidding me that Cousins got paid that? And he's this type of garbage over in Vikings land. And we have, and I'm actually taking this team far. So, I think Dak deserves to get paid. But this will always be a debate in NFC East. It's always going to be contentious between Eagles and Cowboys fans. But in reality, both quarterbacks need to prove themselves in order to get that next step, okay? Dak needs to be able to do it on his own. Wentz needs to be able to win against the big teams. And that's what's going to really separate them. But Orlovsky, of course, made, big waves. He's really just creating some media buzz, putting Wentz that high. I know Orlovsky really likes Wentz. And natural talent alone and kind of the, just the skill set that Wentz has, he's absolutely an upper talent. And that's what I'm always saying. No one's going to argue whether or not Wentz is top 10, okay? He obviously is top 10 in the league as a quarterback with talent and skill, okay? If you want to talk about intangibles, you want to talk about other layers, sure, you can be as subjective as you want, but objectively, he is a top 10 quarterback. And all these quarterbacks are right there on this list. But Russell Wilson's a clear winner. I think he's a top VIP, but, and Breeze and Rodgers. But I think when he put the NFC list that had Rodgers behind Wentz, I think that's insane. I mean, Rodgers is clearly a better quarterback right now, Wentz, because Rodgers had more years to get better, and we've seen him be successful there. So appreciate Orlovsky. Thank you for giving our quarterback that kind of support. But I think realistically, Wentz is tied for 5th or tied for 6th with Dak in the NFC right now. And maybe, people might disagree with me with Watson because Watson, hasn't had as many years. He hasn't been really able to prove himself with that many wins. He got one playoff run so far after tearing his ACL his first year. So, there's time will tell with Watson, but I think Watson's shown that he can really elevate the players around him. But yeah, I love Wentz because he's happy to take whatever's on the field with him and make do with that. He's got a great offensive line, but again, the wide receivers are going to be a question this season, and can they get better and continue to help him? Can we get Miles Sanders to be over 1,000-yard rusher? Can he be the skill guy we need in the backfield to really alleviate some pressure off Wentz as well? Because Dak's got Zeke, and Zeke's always going to help Dak. That the defense has to think about Zeke at all times. They don't have to just think about Dak Prescott. And Eagles need that. They need a running back there, and Miles Sanders, I believe, could get there. But the Eagles need someone in the backfield that the defenses have to worry about instead of just Wentz. So they don't have to just tee off, pin their ears back, and come after Wentz. And there's little bits everywhere there that they need to get. They need to be improved on. But obviously, my list again: Wilson at 1, Rodgers at 2, Drew Brees at 3, Tom Brady at 4, at 5, Watson and Wentz I have tied, and at 6 I have Cousins and Dak. Not far off. Look, I'm being fair out there. All you Cowboy fans, when you start hearing this, I'm being fair, okay? Don't come after me saying I'm being biased, all right? I obviously am giving Wentz a little edge here because he's my boy, but in general, they have very similar play style. They have very similar hurdles they need to get over, okay? Both of them are close to being excellent, but they're not there yet. And I hopefully maybe Hurts behind Wentz will push him over the edge, and we'll see this year. I mean, Wentz is at 35-1 in Caesars booked for MVP odds. I think Dak for Caesars was something like 12-1. So we'll see. Obviously a lot of supporting cast can get you over that MVP hurdle, but we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be dynamic for both teams either way. So excited to see how that all unfolds. Well, with that, folks, I think we're going to wrap it up here for the 34th episode of the ChadBurn Show. It's been fun hitting on kind of the new stories that are happening right now. Again, we're trying to just make as much as we can of the little sports news that we've got. I would say continue to watch The Last Dance. It's an amazing documentary around Michael Jordan. We'll I think once this series is all wrapped up and over, we'll do a deep dive on the whole show and what kind of impact Michael Jordan has and really discussing his legacy after we see all this unfold. We're going to continue to make great content. We're going to continue to create some cool stuff for you guys to interact with. We love doing this. This is fun. I love being out here. It's my therapy every week. And, with all this COVID shutdown bullshit and nonsense, it's something we can do to bring something for you guys. But we'll wrap it off that. Again, we covered today the MLB pay cut talks. We covered Dan Orlovsky's top 5 quarterbacks in the NFC, where I rank mine versus him. And next week, we'll see what else we can bring for you. So as always, make sure you go to our YouTube channel and Instagram and click to follow and subscribe. We post obviously all the podcasts at 7 p.m. on Monday for all the audio channels you listen to, whether it be Google, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. We got them up there. The video is always released the next day onto YouTube after we get everything edited up and make it look nice. So if you want to listen to it or you want to watch this, I believe I have a face for radio, but maybe we got some face of video too. Feel free to check it out. Subscribe to stay up to date with us and when everything is dropped. We also then obviously share clips on Instagram from all our episodes, so you can catch them here and there, and also follow the link in my bio to see the newest episode. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at chadburn.show@gmail.com. Again, that's chadburn.show@gmail.com. We can answer your questions on the show as well as just any general inquiries. Feel free to reach out or DM me on Instagram. Remember, it's at the ChadBurn Show. Sorry, at ChadBurn Show. Forget just at ChadBurn Show. And on YouTube, we are the ChadBurn Show, and you can see everything there. But we love doing this for you all. Thank you for continuing to listen. Until next time, I hope you have a good evening and good night.